Can you imagine how gassy a vegan has to be? Beans every day, nothing else, nothing but roughage. Disgusting. I cannot even imagine the flatulence after eating that. Hard pass. English people start the day off gassy ass after their beans and toast. They be farting up a storm. That's why it's always cloudy. It's just big ass fart cloud. If I see one more ignorant internet comment about beans, I swear to God, I'm gonna blow a gasket. Emphasis on the gas. Look, to the writers of Beans the Musical Fruit, I just want to talk. I know you were trying to help, but you have inadvertently done so much damage to the bean revolution that we're gonna have to revoke your jingle writing license. Side note, I grew up thinking it was Beans the Magical Fruit, but it turns out the more commonly accepted version is Beans the Musical Fruit. Sound off in the comments below. Are you team musical or team magical? As many of us know, beans are kind of magical. They're healthy, they're comforting, they're versatile, environmentally sustainable. I could go on and on and on. But unfortunately, they can't seem to shake their reputation of giving people inordinate amounts of gas. And it seems to cloud people's judgment about them, like the big ass fart cloud so beautifully illustrated in this tweet. And I want to make one thing clear. I'm not trying to gaslight anyone about their gas, because beans can and do make people gassy, some more than others. But I am saying that doesn't mean we shouldn't eat them. And I am also saying that rhetoric often comes from a place of ignorance and gross exaggeration. Did it ever occur to you that all this time you've been pestering vegans about where they get their protein, you should have been more concerned about your insufficient fiber intake? And as a result, whenever you do eat fiber, your body's like, what the fuck is this? Did it ever occur to you that maybe you didn't cook your beans for quite long enough? Did it ever occur to you that there are compounds in beans, like oligosaccharides, that, while can cause gas, have so many health benefits that it's boggling why we're not all eating much more of them? Maybe none of this did occur to you, and that's okay, I'm here to help. There's something called the gut microbiome, which is thought of as an ecosystem. And like many ecosystems on planet Earth, can be hostile to outsiders. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to be welcoming to outsiders. You see, it's important to diversify our gut microbiome because that's what helps ward off diseases. And that gas, bloating, and discomfort that many people report when eating more beans and high fiber foods is often more of a transitional period rather than a permanent state. But enough of my opinion on the topic, because what actually inspired this video was a recent opinion piece in the New York Times. A few years ago, the New York Times committed to reducing the number of meat recipes and increasing the number of plant-based recipes in an effort to reduce animal suffering. Yes? Oh, no, actually, no. It was, to reduce environmental harm. Oh, okay. But don't animals live in the environment? So isn't reducing environmental harm also going to reduce animals? No, we don't say that. We don't talk about that here. Got it. Mm-hmm. To their credit, we can't accuse them of not following through on this because they certainly have. One thing we can and have accused them of is being a little bit of a one-shtick Tony with their recipes. I mean, there's a reason this tweet got 18,000 likes. But honestly, good for them for embracing and showcasing beans as much as they have. And it has been a lot. I don't read the New York Times because I somehow always seem to be at my monthly article limit, even when I haven't clicked on an article in months. But like I'm sure many millennials, I have a trusty team of boomers in my life who dutifully send me articles on a regular basis. And every now and then, they figure out how to send it as a gift so I can actually open it. I had this article sent to me by one of my trustiest boomers, and while it is sprinkled with a pinch of pretension, it is the New York Times after all, it makes some really interesting points. It's called How to Make a Nation of Meat Eaters Crave the Humble Bean. Right off the bat, I have a wee criticism. I don't know if the phrase humble bean is doing us any favors. If we're trying to convince a nation of people who seem to value strength and masculinity above all else to eat more beans, I don't know if the phrase, the humble bean, is the best approach. Beans may be humble, but they have every right to be arrogant little fuckers. So maybe it's time for a rebrand. How about something like the cocky bean, the macho bean, the bean that's gonna help you cure your health ailments, buy 6 new cryptos, and launch 2 new podcasts by the end of the fiscal year. How about BBE, Big Bean Energy? Just some food for thought. The article starts out by acknowledging that for the health of the planet, most of us are going to have to eat a lot less meat, which the author states won't be fixed by a few meatless Mondays. It talks about the fatalistic attitude many people have about changing their diets, and points out that most people assume the solution is to offer meat lovers super realistic meat analogs, but then makes the good point that no one is born loving hot dogs and disliking broccoli. Well, I actually think this guy may have been born loving hot dogs, but I see the author's point, which is that food preferences are learned. When it comes to food, pleasure is what changes the world, because few people make a habit of eating foods they dislike. Think of the plethora of dishes from avocado toast to kale salad that have entered the American mainstream despite being virtually unknown a generation ago. I sometimes wonder how baffled my Dorito-eating younger self would be by middle-aged me, who would rather eat some gorgeous roasted oyster mushrooms or a vibrant plate of charred asparagus than anything from McDonald's. Don't get me wrong, I still love a roast chicken or some barbecue ribs, but I don't love them more than I do a silky eggplant sandwich or a spicy cauliflower shawarma. Ah, there it is. The pinch of pretension. Let's get to the important stuff. What would it take to encourage Americans to adopt more sustainable tastes? Telling people that they are wrong to enjoy eating cheese or candy or bacon is clearly not the way to go. The stomach, like the heart, knows what it wants. I think what she meant was Americans are self-centered hedonists who would rather moan "but bacon though," while the world and all its inhabitants crumbles around them rather than make one microscopic change for the greater good. But she couldn't very well say that, could she? A far more productive approach would be to help people discover new preferences for some of the foods that should play bigger roles in our diets. Alright, I'm listening. She goes on to point out that beans, along with other legumes, are everything meat is not in sustainability terms. Far less thirsty per gram of protein than the water-guzzling operations that serve up America's beef and chicken, and good for soil quality, drawing in nitrogen and reducing the need for fertilizer. During the pandemic, food influencers on social media trumpeted the joys of brothy beans. Bean liquor, which older recipes foolishly told us to rinse away, can be as richly Moorish as chicken soup, especially if you double up on the umami with some Parmesan cheese or miso. Sorry, I was just considering leaving it all behind to become a beanfluencer. When you serve people a bowl of well-cooked beans, even a simple one, it doesn't take much to convince them that beans are delicious. A dish of white beans cooked until soft and drizzled with oil, crispy sage, and garlic. Okay, calm down. You didn't have to prove this tweet to be 100% correct this soon into the article. Has all the comfort of mashed potatoes. You're not eating it because it's high in sustainable protein, but because each spoonful sends you back for another one. Steve Sando, the founder of the Rancho Gordo brand of gorgeously tinted beans, does not simply market his products as health food or green food. Rather, he says he talks to potential customers about how magical it feels to take a pound of rocks and turn them into something creamy and delicious. I'm not gonna lie, when you put it that way, it really does sound magical. Team Magical, all the way. By the way, Rancho Gordo beans are absolutely delicious and have managed to break into the mainstream in a very trendy and appealing way. I actually just made a pot of chili using their beans last night and had some for lunch today. Things are about to get musical up in here, if you know what I mean. Or are they about to get magical? Or both. If the US government wants to get serious about encouraging people to eat beans, it should offer workshops and online videos on delicious, easy ways to cook them. Consider South Korea. Okay, I'll consider them. In the 1980s, the country's Rural Development Administration, in an effort to preserve traditional cuisine and support local farmers, trained thousands of workers to lead monthly sessions on how to cook traditional Korean foods such as kimchi, steamed rice, and soup and braised vegetables. It seems to have helped. Traditional foods continue to represent a large part of the Korean diet, and survey data suggests that South Koreans ate a similar quantity of vegetables in 2009 as they did in the late 1960s. Now there's something I didn't know and found pretty cool. If we were to try to preserve American culinary traditions from the 1960s, we'd all be eating a lot of canned vegetables, mysterious meats, and jello molds that are somehow called salads. The anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss said that food can not only be good to eat, it must also be good to think. To start seeing beans as something to crave, you need to imagine them as desirable. Feel the beans. Did that work? That work for anyone? Of course, this won't happen overnight. As of 2019, the average American consumed roughly 55 pounds of chicken a year, compared with about 2.5 pounds of cooked black beans. Now that's kind of crazy, isn't it? That's kind of a jarring statistic. And of course, for every vegan who's not eating those 55 pounds of chicken per year, there's a meat eater who's eating. Alright, I think you get it. But there are signs of progress. The proportion of Americans who consume chickpeas has more than doubled since 2003, in part thanks to the popularity of hummus, which taught many skeptics that those strange round things could actually become a rich, savory dip. From the joys of hummus, it's only a short step to discovering the delight of an Indian chana masala, which can be whipped up in a trice with a can of chickpeas and a few spices. We have veered dangerously close to the land of pretension once again. Ooh, look, we got a little sprinkle of pretension as a treat. I do agree things are progressing. However, the author missed arguably the most important sign of progression, which is that in 2022, a beans emoji was added to the Emojipedia. I mean, if that's not a concrete sign of progress, I don't know what is. This passage also reminded me of something I've noticed through years of being a plant foods advocate and through watching Kamala Harris's speeches.
You exist in the context.
Which is that context is very important. I wouldn't be surprised if the very same people joking online about beans are the same people enjoying beans and franks, or consuming beef chili with beans, or eating a Chipotle burrito bowl with beans. People seem to forget that they already love and eat beans. But somehow, when you remove the meaty security blanket, all hell breaks loose in people's minds. And like a stern uncle threatened by their magical powers, they relinquish them to a cupboard under the stairs. If the bean industry wants to sell more of its product, it should consider displaying varieties proudly in glass, like a jar of fine olives. I hate to break it to you, lady, but shitty olives come in glass jars too. Bold Bean Co., a British company, delivers tall jars of gourmet beans with names such as Queen Butter beans, which are plumper and more flavorful than most others on the market in Britain. As the company's founder told me, putting beans in a glass jar helped shoppers see her product as premium and desirable. Now, I don't know if this is exactly the solution, but I do agree that marketing and perception are things that can help a product fly off the shelves. I mean, look at kale. For most of us, kale used to be used for one thing and one thing only. I didn't even realize it was edible till like 12 years ago. Cauliflower used to be viewed as broccoli's weird anemic cousin. And now, well, we all know what happened to her. She looks pretty good. We can also learn from cultures that already revere beans, from hearty Brazilian feijoada to the Hoppin' John of South Carolina or the pasta fazool of Italian Americans. Ibrahim Bazir, who sells seasoned cooked beans in pouches under the brand A Dozen Cousins, told me that for many of his black customers, beans offer a cultural connection to healthy eating. This is a lovely thought, and cultural connection is important. However, when your culture is Irish, French, German, we're not going to be reconnecting with beans anytime soon. Yes, beans still have a low profile compared to meat, not least because the bean industry lacks the clout of the meat industry, which pours millions into lobbying. But this could change. Could it? How? And when? Inquiring minds would like to know. Come on, Big Bean, let's put you in touch with the pistachio people, and the oat milk people, and the kimchi people. They figured it out. If anyone tells you Americans will never enjoy beans as much as they do meat, think of just a few of the once little-known foods from pesto to tofu and gochujang that have been welcomed gratefully onto American tables in recent decades. The more new plant foods a person learns to enjoy, the less room there is on the plate for hamburgers. So true, bestie. And while some vegans shun baby steps, I personally think this add to subtract approach is probably the best one, at least for Americans, because one thing about Americans, we really don't like having things subtracted from us. So what do you guys think? Do beans make people fart too much? What's the best way to convince people they should eat them anyway? Should we be pushing beans more and mock meats less? Will I ever not be at my 10-article New York Times limit, even though I don't even read 2 New York Times articles a month? Lots of important questions. I'd love to hear your answers. Thank you for joining me on this magical musical journey. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more of my videos. Check out Patreon for more content from me, exclusive videos and podcasts, Discord access, and more. A special shout out to my Fancy Fork patrons, Regina and Claudia. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!
Beans, beans, the musical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. The more you toot, the better you feel. So lift up your leg and let one squeal.